Hello, everyone. This is a somewhat short lecture on the novel we're going to be reading for Module 8. It's our novel for the semester. It's Winter's Bone by Daniel Woodrell. This is a really interesting book that came out in 2006. It was adapted into a film about 6 or 7 years after that, starring Jennifer Lawrence. And you can actually find that film on one of the SMCC electronic databases. If you go to My SMCC and then My Learning, you'll see a tab under the library that says Electronic Resources, or Multimedia Resources, excuse me. And in that tab, you'll find a database titled Kanopy. If you go to Kanopy, you're going to need to create an account, but it's very simple. All you need is your SMCC email address. Once you get into your account, you can search Winter's Bone and you'll find the film there. So that might be a good resource for you when you're reading this book. It doesn't follow the narrative completely. There are some major changes to different characters. So don't just rely on the movie, but it's an interesting watch. It's a great film. It does have some moments of violence that can be powerful, so know that going in as well. But if you've read the book, you know what some of those moments already are. Let's talk about Winter's Bone. So, like I said, this was published in 2006. It's Daniel Woodrell's 8th novel. Prior to that, he had written a number of works that didn't quite sell as much. One had been adapted into a film, but he was still very much a struggling writer until Winter's Bone came out. And this book sold more than, I think, all of his other books combined. He's an interesting fellow. He was born in the community that he writes about. So where Winter's Bone takes place is where Daniel Woodrell grew up. About 11 years before 2006, he came back to his family town, the place where he grew up. It's in southern Missouri, right near the Arkansas border, a place known as the Ozarks. And this book is very much focused in on not only the location of the Ozarks, but the culture as well. His wife is a writer, too, and so they were able to purchase a house in this community for very cheap, which allowed them to continue their writing and not have to make a ton of money. Woodrell had tried other things in terms of making a living, teaching, also in the armed services, but he kept coming back to his writing and has worked on that ever since. The house that they live in is in a community that is rural, and it is a community that was devastated by opiate addiction. And so methamphetamines, which this book also covers and investigates, were a part of Woodrell's life as well. The people that lived nearby him were people who were involved in this kind of drug trade and in the lifestyle that Ree, our main character in this book, has to endure because her father's a part of that lifestyle. Other than growing or manufacturing dope, there's not much decent paying work available, at least around 2006. Like many towns, manufacturing has left, and in that void comes other ways people try to make money, and some of those involve illicit drugs. So this book and Woodrell's life kind of both have that in their experience. Now, like I said, Woodrell grew up in this area. He writes about a family known as the Dolleys. Ree Dolley, the main character, is the daughter of Jessup Dolley, her father, who goes missing, and her purpose in this book is to find her father. But that fictional family is based in something real. Woodrell says he based the hard-boiled Dollykin on the West Plains Collins family, who, like the Dolleys, share a tangled family tree. The West Plains phone book lists 250 Collinses, many of them inhabiting a stretch of Highway 14 unofficially named Collinsville. Think about that in terms of your own experience. Maybe some of us in this class are from small towns, and maybe some of those small towns do have big family names. I know when I grew up in Michigan, in the small town I lived in, there was a big kind of family that was connected to one of the paper mills, and in the school there were cousins and teachers who were from that family, and everybody knew them. Ree's family is very much like this. So watch out for those experiences in the book. I think for Ree, our main character, this is not something that she's proud of. This is an encumbrance. This is something that holds her back from achieving her dreams because of her family's her family's history. Weather is a major part of this book. It's called Winter's Bone, and about every form of winter precipitation falls upon our character. In Winter's Bone, Woodrell chronicles the frailties and grotesqueries of the human condition and turns icy landscapes and cloudbursts into menacing characters. Watch for this. The weather almost becomes a character in the book. And finally, one thing I want you to think about is the language. Like I said early in this lecture, this isn't just about the place of the Ozarks, it's about the culture. And Woodrell wants to bring us that language. So he displays a keen ear for linguistic quirks. Parmesan cheese is called sprinkle cheese. A first name is a front name. The dining room table is the eating table. And if one parts are gathered, sanity prevails. I think we have this kind of thing also in Maine, where we have certain words that are used in this state that aren't familiar in other states, and all places do. And that's what makes traveling and going to see different cultures interesting. I know for me, coming from Michigan, we had a thing called pop. Give me a pop. And what that means is I want a soda. When I came and moved out here 25 years ago, I still had that word in my vocabulary and nobody knew what I was talking about. And I didn't know what Moxie was. Now living in Maine, I do. So think about all those kind of particular place things about language and food and culture that we have in Maine. Woodrell's trying to explore those as they exist in his Ozark community. Now, this is very much a novel about one character, Ree Dolly. She's a 16-year-old daughter of Jessup and her mother, and she is really in charge of the family. Her father has left and is missing. Her mother is struggling with some mental illness, much like our character from Module 7, Catherine in Proof. And Ree has everything set upon her to take care of. She is the most responsible family member, and she has two younger brothers that are of utmost importance in her life in terms of taking care of people. These are some of the motifs or the themes that come to play in this novel. Like I said, there's weather moments throughout the book. There's also interesting water moments. Water is a conventional symbol. It's one that's used time and time again in a lot of different works, and oftentimes it can be used as a point of rebirth or baptism. It can suggest that new ideas are formed, or something somehow when you go under the water, one person, you come up somebody else, and in revelations or ideas are revealed. So watch for those water moments. There's a few interesting ones in Winter's Bone. One takes place on a bridge. Another takes place in some cold springs, and they're just interesting water moments. Ree has a very, very deep connection with the natural world. It's something you're going to explore in the Winter's Bone exam, which is the big assignment of Module 8. I think Daniel Woodrell is trying to suggest something to the readers about humans' connection with the natural world. So as you're reading the book, really pay attention to where Ree comes to rely upon or comes to let nature affect her viewpoint. We see it in the first chapter. I think we see it throughout the book. So watch for those moments. You're going to need to gather those moments for the essay that you're going to complete for Winter's Bone. And you're going to need to make a case for what you think the author is trying to say about people and their connection with nature. Setting reveals character throughout this book, so as we're meeting different characters, Woodrell loves to also give us their place and their location. Watch for their interesting moments. Ree has an extreme amount of responsibility in her life, and we see that from chapter 1. We see it throughout the book. I think Ree looks at her responsibility in one way at the beginning of this book and perhaps differently at the end of this book. Throughout the novel, life lessons come with physical pain. If you're going to learn something about the world in this book, it's not just through words. It's not through mentors or mentorship. It's through pain, physical pain. And I think we see that even in chapter 1. We see it throughout the novel. Finally, there's a difference between cultural and societal laws in this book. Cultural laws are ones that aren't on the books, but ones that we kind of abide by. I feel like there's a cultural law in Maine that makes people stop when they see you're in trouble with your car and try to help you. Every time I've had a flat tire or something's gone wrong with my car, I literally have 2 or 3 or 4 people trying to help me, and that's a little different in Michigan. You usually have to call the tow truck. And society laws are ones that we all abide by. Don't jaywalk, don't steal. Those are ones that we can be prosecuted for if we infringe upon. They're different than cultural laws. Cultural laws are ones that we just kind of, they aren't in the books. There's no jail time you're going to go to if you break a cultural law, but it's one that people expect of you. And that's an interesting thing to look at the two dynamics in this book. Not just how Rhee has to abide by the societal laws, but what cultural laws does she have to abide by. And I think in this book, the cultural laws she has to abide by are more serious than the society ones. Let me just read you the first chapter really quickly and give you a few comments about it. I think we're going to see some of these motifs in the first chapter. Rhee Dolly stood at break of day on her cold front steps and smelled coming flurries and saw meat. Meat hung from trees across the creek. The carcasses hung pale of flesh with a fatty gleam from low limbs of saplings in the side yards. 3 halt, haggard houses formed a kneeling rank on the far creekside, and each had 2 or more skin torsos dangling by rope from sag limbs. Venison left to weather for 2 nights and 3 days, so the early blossoming of decay might round the flavor, sweeten that meat to the bone. Snow clouds had replaced the horizon, capped the valley darkly, and chafing wind blew, so the hung meat twirled from the jiggling branches. Rhee, brunette and 16, with milk skin and abrupt green eyes, stood bare-armed in a fluttering yellowed dress, face to the wind, her cheeks reddening as if smacked and smacked again. She stood tall in combat boots, scarce at the waist, but plenty through the arms and shoulders, a body made for lopping after needs. She smelled the frosty wet in the looming clouds, thought of her shadowed kitchen and lean cupboard, looked to the scant wood pile, shuddered. The coming weather meant wash hung outside would freeze into planks, so she'd have to stretch the clothesline across the wood stove, and the puny stack of wood split for the potbelly would not last long enough to dry much except Mom's underthings and maybe a few t-shirts for the boys. Rhee knew that there was no gas for the chainsaw, so she'd be swinging the axe out back while winter blew into the valley and fell around her. Jessup, her father, had not set by a fat wood pile nor split what there was for the potbelly before he went down the steep yard to his blue Capri and bounced away on the rut road. He had not set food by nor money, but promised he'd be back as soon as he could with a paper sack of cash and a trunk load of delights. Jessup was a broken-faced, furtive man, giving to uttering quick pleading promises that made it easier for him to walk out the door and be gone, or come back inside and be forgotten. Walnuts were still falling when Rhee saw him last. Walnuts were thumping to the ground in the night like stalking footsteps of some large thing that never quite came into view. And Jessup had paced on this porch in a worried slouch, dented nose, snuffling, lantern jaw smoked by beard, eyes uncertain and alarmed by each walnut thump. The darkness and those thumps out in the darkness seemed to keep him jumpy. He paced until the decision popped into his head, then started down the steps, going fast into the night before his mind could change. He said, "Start looking for me as soon as you see my face. Till then, don't even wonder." She heard the door behind her squeak, and Harold, age 8, dark and slight, stood in pale long johns, holding the knob, fidgeting from foot to foot. He raised his chin, gestured toward the meat trees across the creek. "Maybe tonight Blonde Milton will bring us one by to eat," he said. "That could be," said Rhee. "Don't Ken ought to?" "That's what is always said." "Could be we should ask." She looked at Harold with his easy smile, black hair rifling in the wind, then snatched his nearest ear and twisted till his jaw fell loose and he raised his hand to swat at hers. She twisted until he bore up under the pain and stopped swatting. Never ask what ought to be offered." "I'm cold," he said. He was rubbing his smart ears. "Grit's all we got?" "Butter and more," said Rhee. "There's still a tad of butter." He held the door and they both stepped inside. "No, there ain't." Now, in that first chapter, I think we see a number of these motifs. 1, weather's coming. Rhee's on that porch smelling the storm that is coming her way. I think we see some interesting moments where Rhee relies on nature, not just to kind of get the day started, but the last time she saw her father was when the walnuts were falling. There's no date, there's no time, it's just when a plant was dropping its fruit. And so that's an interesting thing to think that Rhee remembers the world that way. We see life lessons coming with physical pain. When Harold asks, "Maybe we should ask for some meat over there," Rhee doesn't say, "We shouldn't do that. We got to protect our pride." She grabs his ear and twists it and says, "Never ask for what ought to be offered." And finally, Rhee's responsibility. We're talking food, we're talking clothing, we're talking shelter. She's in charge of it all in terms of making the fire, in terms of getting the laundry done. So we see that responsibility there. Keep watching for these motifs as you read the book, and I hope you enjoy this novel. Rhee is one of my favorite characters, and she's a really wonderful, wonderful protagonist to follow.